Hi, Hengist here from House Hengist Comics, and a big and hearty welcome back to the channel. Today, again, we're in Norway, following on from the air intercept game, and I've entitled this episode Ragnarok. But before we get started, a little bit of news, and basically here are a couple of comments from the local newspapers. Allies driven in from Lillehammer, and more troops have landed. Now these troops are landing up at Narvik, and this is very important, where they have a significant outnumbering against German forces. In fact, there's only a Gebirgsjäger company up there at the moment and some Kriegsmarine. Aerial reconnaissance gives a huge advantage again in these white conditions for German air patrols, and they're pretty aware of really where all the Allied movements are. British forces today consist, like many of the companies that we have in this campaign, are pretty standard in that they've got a 1 and 2 IC with 2 mortars in HQ and 4 infantry platoons, each platoon with an anti-tank rifle, a boy's rifle, and a light mortar. Not really much in terms of asset to take on German forces. Much of their campaign was spent awaiting support, and effectively what we see here are their allies, the Norwegians. The Norwegians have far better lists per se in terms of equipment, with artillery, mortars, machine guns, but no anti-tank weapons and no sort of mines or tank mines. The uniform is quite interesting, as we can see depicted here, and I like this photograph, which sort of gives the rough shade and the Bergen rucksack. Probably the best equipped of the Norwegians are obviously their ski troops and the Stang sort of volunteers who have whites, so to speak, and are very well prepared for these winter conditions, a bit like the German forces, because in this battle we're looking at the Gebirgsjäger, mountain troops, very well trained from Austria. They have their famous Edelweiss on the side of their caps and in some cases their helmets, and they used to also wear this flower as well, having climbed to certain heights to obtain them. So what are the battle objectives today? Well, Lillehammer has fallen. Again, the British and what's left of the Norwegian forces have to hold and defend. They have more troops further up in the Donbass Valley. We have a ground battle deck in play. And so without further ado, let's get into the action. And we're sort of picking up straight away from in the last episode, the Blenheim was going down. The 109s had basically been very successful, shot 2 out of the 3 in the flight down, and Flight Lieutenant Carruthers is in the drink. As the 109s basically bank and fly over Lieutenant Carruthers, looking down upon him, they can see a number of things. Again, with the snow, this really does improve their visibility for infantry and ground forces. They've flown over the fishing boat. They catch sight of a white bear also on the rocks. They fly over the trawler and are about to conduct a strafing run. As this sign says, we're only looking at around 200 kilometers to Trondheim from here. And the Norwegians and British are deployed, as you can see in this photograph. The Germans facing them, they are supported in this action by 1 tank platoon and Kradschützens, who are ready to go. The German commander is just going to throw everything up this road as the 109s bank and come in, delivering a devastating strafing run, with 6s coming out of the hands. Basically 2 of the precious artillery pieces are destroyed as the 109s victory roll effectively and leave the table. This basically starts the German assault, with reconnaissance having taken place at first. The Pak 36s and mortars have dismounted and basically been set up, whilst the 105 off-table Firestorm unit of artillery is also in position. What we see here are the first opening shots, with a lot of smoke being fired, the tanks getting 1 particular kill and rumbling forward. Now these are very light tanks, but against an enemy without tanks and anti-tank asset, they're a very strong force indeed. They punch through the smoke, basically supported by the infantry, but that comes under mortar fire, and the 2nd platoon seen here has an appalling day, basically pinned down practically for the whole day. But the German commander isn't concerned. He moves forward, sees an opportunity from the smoke, and then basically decides to concentrate all his artillery against the British 1st Platoon. Although they take a few Lee Enfield rifle rounds, they get 3 batteries to range in, causing suppression and casualties, and then launch a very bold and aggressive assault. Here they basically effectively manage to cause a number of casualties. About 20 Brits are really taken prisoner or killed, whilst their tanks sweep round the building. Now, the Germans' objective is to link in with this sort of double-pronged attack and basically isolate the 2nd platoon in this chalet and their building behind it. This they successfully do, basically surrounding the British, as you can see in this photograph, who have no choice but to counterattack and are effectively wiped out in this action, with really only the anti-tank rifle and medic managing to get away. However, the tanks break through, as does the infantry, onto the 3rd platoon behind them. But in the close of, again, desperate fighting from the British, who managed to inflict a couple of casualties, but not enough, they repel both the infantry and the tanks. And there's a sort of hiatus moment. But then again, as the turn sequence begins again, the Germans continue to press forward, only to run into some heavy machine guns and an appalling dice. Effectively, the Norwegians do really well, but the saves from the tanks leave 3 effectively with damage effectively from this fuselage, and behind them are 2 75 guns which blow one Befehlswagen to pieces, and basically the tanks are compelled to fall back. At this point, the Germans also fail to unpin, but it's in turn 6, and the German commander has sensed that he's inflicted so much damage and continues to range in with the same approach he's going to apply to the depleted 3rd platoon. His scouts also attack the enemy patrol group and destroy that as well, and this brings the British surprisingly below half, and they immediately fail motivation. With the Norwegians with no command, they are also compelled to withdraw, and effectively through the discussions that followed abandoned their equipment and ran for the mountains. For the British, they managed to withdraw with 2 platoons, everything else effectively captured or destroyed, so they've lost about 120 men. As Stan said, it was a bloody shambles. But to be fair, they fought extremely well without the equipment, and they've got a lot of support coming to Narvik, including perhaps maybe even some commandos, but there's definitely French Foreign Legion and other troops. And of course the RAF will also be moving on Narvik and are about to build a base for some Hurricanes up there. So if you enjoyed what we've done, and I really enjoyed this game, and both players fought really, really well, do support, continue to subscribe, and we'll have far more coming up along with more history. So stay tuned, and it's best wishes from me. Over and out.